So there are many people who go out after different things when they're applying for jobs. Some people go after money, some people go after job stability, some people even go after the organizational culture. Today, Miles is all about looking for a bigger cause and serving humanity as much as he can. He is currently working for Glooko, a company that recently secured a $30 million funding and is on to big, big things. Let's welcome Miles on 10 Minutes of Hiding Wisdom, who will enlighten us about where he's currently working and what the company is all about. Hi, Miles. How are you doing today?
I'm great. I'm great. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Of course, Miles. So, can you tell us about the company that you're currently working with, what your role is?
Yeah, so as you mentioned, I work for a company called Glooko. We're headquartered here in the Bay Area, beautiful Palo Alto, California. And we basically are a company that helps patients with diabetes and the providers that serve those patients. And so, as you mentioned, we just recently closed a Series D round of financing. The company is continuing to grow, and I'm at the company as a type 1 diabetic myself, and so when I share kind of wisdom and whatnot with prospective candidates outside of gluco, what I always tell people is, if as much as possible, try and find something that resonates with you, a mission that you can really get behind, and that makes it that much more enjoyable when you're going to work each day, right? Is if you really enjoy what the company stands for at the end of the day.
That makes sense. I'm sorry about hearing about your diabetes, but I'm glad you're doing well. I'm glad you're doing better, and I'm glad you're part of a company that specifically works on diabetes management because I think on everyday life, like daily basis and everything, it can be really hard, especially managing your diet, managing your exercise, and everything. So, thank you for actually being part of a company that's actually contributing to the wellness of people who specifically deal with this. So, I really appreciate it.
Yeah,
So,
appreciate it.
sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, and I would say that thank you, but there are selfish reasons, right? As I am a type 1 diabetic myself, but yeah, I'm glad that we are able to serve those folks that not only have type 1 diabetes but type 2 and pre-diabetes, which is a huge problem not only here in the United States but worldwide.
I think so. I completely agree. I think diabetes has definitely been on the rise, with especially in the United States. But then again, I mean, people love eating in the United States, so as in like it's definitely a lot of different factors taking into play. So you're definitely on the right track, being a part of a company that's definitely looking at the bigger picture. So, Miles, can you tell us about your role in the company? What exactly you do?
Yeah, so I am the head of recruiting. And at a small company like ours, what does that mean? Well, not only am I in charge of the strategy with regards to how the company is going to grow, but I'm still a hands-on recruiter. I talk to candidates, I interview candidates, I extend offers to candidates and close them, and everything in between with regards to then on the business side of things, helping our hiring managers understand what they're looking for, identify talent, and then run the whole process from soup to nuts.
That makes sense. Especially for startups, I think you need to wear different hats because the team is so small. So you constantly need to go from one department to the other. And as in, like, I think it usually has its pros and cons. I mean, you can get a hands-on experience in different things, you can learn different things, but I think it can get too much as well. So, considering as in, like, did you always know that you wanted to be a part of recruitment? What drew you to recruitment specifically?
Yeah, I had a very funny, at least to me, funny story of how I fell into recruiting. So, back in 2000, we were going through, and this was before your time, young lady, but this, we went through an era called the dot-com, era, right? And that was late 90s, early 2000s. And here in the Bay Area, everybody was just growing like crazy. Everybody was getting multiple offers. There were talks about, companies giving cars as signing bonuses, and so it was a hot time to be in the, in the Silicon Valley at that point. And actually, was using my college degree. I was a personal trainer for a fitness facility in Menlo Park, and I was actually covering for another personal trainer and I was asked to cover his client. And at the end, that client liked to be stretched, so I was stretching that client and just started to make some small talk. Hey, what do you do for a living, so on and so forth. And she said, actually, I'm the head of recruiting at this tech company. Jokingly, do you would you be interested in working, for us? And 2 weeks later, I was behind a desk, didn't know anything about recruiting, had no idea what Microsoft Office was, didn't know how to open up a Word document, and she hired me kind of on the spot, if you will, and the reason why she told me later was because um, she felt that I had this kind of natural ability to connect with people, to talk with people. I felt comfortable, to me. And so she felt like she could teach me kind of the nuts and bolts of recruiting. But it's always harder to teach somebody to be a people person. And that's actually a philosophy that I've adopted when I've looked to build my teams is we can teach people, if you can teach me how to open up an Excel spreadsheet and how to do, these things, and you can pretty much teach anybody, right? I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed, as they say. But it is more difficult if somebody is just not, comfortable um, interacting with people, right? And that's primarily what recruiting does on both sides of the equation, right? We deal with and interact with candidates on one side, and then with your hiring managers or your clients on the other side. And so it's a very people focused job, and she saw that in me, and I followed her to the next company after that, and the next company after that, and slowly built my career from that time on.
Wow. So this story is the perfect example of being at the right place at the right time.
Very lucky indeed.
Well, I'm glad things worked out for you, and especially because now you're the head of recruitment, you must be doing something really well. I think you must be really a people's person, especially because you, as in like, considering you're leading a team now, you're recruiting people. It definitely sounds like you did well, Miles. So congratulations on
Thank
that.
you. I appreciate that.
Of course. So you've been in recruitment for quite a while, Miles. I'd love to hear your perspective regarding how candidates, for example, who are applying to jobs can make themselves stand out specifically when they're applying for jobs. For example, if they apply to Glooko, what is something that you would look in candidates to increase their chances of getting that specific dream job?
Yeah, I would say that for folks that are looking, right, you have to be dedicated to it, right? You actually have to put some effort into it, right? Now, there are some companies where you might not have to put the effort into it, and let me kind of explain what I mean by that. um, there are some companies that might have these bots, if you will, that they get a 1,000 resumes a day, and then they have some sort of AI algorithm that kind of will sift through it, and then serve up only those resumes that might meet those criteria. I actually look at all of our resumes, and if it's not me looking at our resumes, it's going to be the hiring manager that looks at those resumes, right? And we go through the queues. Now we're a small enough company that I don't get thousands of resumes, or applicants coming in. But when we do get, hundreds of resumes that come through, and so for me, what is going to make that person stand out is that I can tell that they've done a little bit more than just throw the resume, out and see what sticks. So we have some lightweight questions, if you will, that I put into all of our application processes. So you must include your resume. We make it optional to include a cover letter, and then I'm going to ask some lightweight questions. One of the questions that I put on all of our job posts are, what about our mission resonates with you, right? And I would say that there's no single right answer, but I would say that there are definitely wrong answers. And the wrong answers are, for instance, NA, right? So they know that in order for them to get their resume to me, they have to put something in that text box, right? So they put NA or period or I really want to work in software engineering, right? And if you don't understand the gist of that question, then I will be, really likely to move on and find somebody that takes the time, right? And the question can just be very simply, I like the fact that you're working on a mission-driven company and trying to help others, right? There's a million different ways to answer it correctly. But as I mentioned it to you, the folks that take the time to, do it, answer those questions thoughtfully are the folks that, show me that like they actually want to be here, right? Versus that they just want a job. There are so many jobs out there. There really are. And if you want to have just another job, and let's say your most important lever to pull is financial, right? Like you're driven financially. That's not a bad thing. But what I would tell you is don't apply to Glooko, go to Google, right? We're going to pay you a fair wage, but I can't compete with the same wages of a Google or any of the other FANG companies, if you will, right? You are going to come to Glooko because hopefully you understand that what you do ultimately serves the purpose of our mission, which is to help people with diabetes and, again, those clinicians that serve them. So take some time to do some research into the company, right? If you're going to submit a cover letter, don't address it as, dear sir or madam. Like, my information is available and you can see that I'm the only recruiter at Glooko, right? Like, take some time, right, to figure out who your audience is and research the company and show me that you're really interested in us and invested. Otherwise, you don't stand out, right? You just like anybody else, right? And then the next thing that I'll kind of share with you is just kind of high level with regards to resumes in general. And I've seen this unfortunately throughout, my time of recruiting, meaning that there's no playbook, right? You can go out there. Here's how to craft a resume that really creates impact, and everybody's going to have their kind of twist on it, right? So my particular twist on it, right, is let's just assume that I know what a software engineer does. Okay, I don't need you to tell me that you write code on a daily basis, right? And that you, right? I want to know how you made a difference. How you came in and, the problem was X and it resulted in Y, right? How did you move the needle? That's much more important to me than saying like, oh, I was, a an accountant. Let me tell you what an accountant does. No, I know what an accountant does. Tell me how you made a difference, right? And that's how I think that you can stand out when say this is what I do, and here's how it was impactful to the company. And I think that if people take the time to do that in their resumes versus kind of pulling up, well, this was my job description from the last company, so I'm just going to copy and paste those bullet points of what my responsibilities were, it doesn't really stand out to me. It doesn't show me that you're
That
any
makes sense.
different than the next person that I'm going to pull up the resume, right?
That makes sense. Wonderful pieces of advices. And I think, I mean, because technology has made resources like for job applications, for example, so accessible, I think people get overwhelmed. So they're like, okay, I mean, let's just apply to as many jobs as we can and then let's hear back. But I think during that, they tend to just put in average applications out there when the quality should be the utmost priority, specifically if you're applying to companies that are smaller, that are startups, and that are serving for a bigger cause, as opposed to companies such as Google or bigger companies who can just like provide you with financial incentives to join them. Well, Miles, thank you so much. It was an absolute pleasure learning from you about why you're working for Glooko, and I think you've done really well. I can definitely see you're a people's person, and just like thank you so much for sharing your insights with
Absolutely.
us.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Of course, have a good
All
rest of
right.
your
Take
day.
care. Bye bye.